have two different kinds of scripts. One of them allows you to, only the owner can talk to the bot, and the other one allows the bot to talk to anyone who comes by, anyone who talks in the chat log. Now here's the warning. If you res more than one of your bots and you have the same bot ID, you can get something called crosstalk. Does anyone know what crosstalk is? Okay, I'll give you a moment to answer. So imagine we had several bots out and we had all the same ID on all of them. Well, what will happen eventually is the bots will start talking to one another. They'll go get a life without you. And this happened to us about 2 weeks ago. We have evidence of this, and it can cause a denial of service attack against the Pandora bot site. So you want to be very careful with that. So let's talk about how we avoid it, right? To avoid it, you want to have a different bot ID in each bot. Any questions on that? Now, the way you get different bot IDs is to create different bots. Yes, if you have a question, go ahead and type it in the chat log. And see, it's very fast. So if you guys have visited the site yet, it's very fast to create a bot. And every time you hit the publish link, you get a new bot ID. And if you forget your bot ID, you can always go back to the site and you can click My Pandora Bots, and it shows you all your bots and all your IDs. Any questions? So this is very simple. It's not a big problem, but avoiding that, the attack is really important, right? Okay. Well, once you've selected your type of bot, you select Create the Pandora Bot, and you go on to the next slide. Now, before I go, there's a trivia question for this slide. If you'd like to answer, what are we doing on this slide? What's the keyword, the verb that we're interested in? It's not configure. There you go. Thank you. Okay, so moving to the next one, let's look at what we're doing here. Now, we've clicked one of the links on this page, or we're about to. And what we're interested in from this page is, I've created a bot called JoyBot. And I says, okay, if I have Joy, and that's her name, I can publish her, but if I publish her right now, she doesn't know much. She's not very smart, right? So she needs some rules and facts. She needs to know some things like what's her favorite movie, what's her name, all kinds of details, if you will. And there's a link on this page that you want to click, and it's in the paragraph under JoyBot. Do you know which link you should click to reset her, to configure her? It begins with a P. It's not publish, right? Before publishing, what do you want to do? Now, the reason I ask you it this way is so you remember better when the session's over, because I'm very interested in you being successful. Okay, so what do we want to do? Before we publish, we set it begins with a P. Well, pilot, that's a good start. The profile, it's here, and it's a link. It's right above my head. A few lines. Yes, it's the properties. We want to set the properties. So let's click the page and see what does the properties menu look like. Well, on the right above cyber, you can see the properties. Now I know you have to alt click and get in real close, but there are things like who's your bot master, who created you, and what's your birthday, and what's your gender, and this is the gender of your bot. So you can give your bot quite a few characteristics. Now you're not limited to this list. You can add additional ones. So let's say you're teaching a class in English as a second language or Japanese or whatever the subject is, or maybe it's anthropology. You can set up a custom list, okay? You do it one line at a time. So you set the property type, you just put in the name, and then you set the value, which is the response. And then when your chatbot is asked that question, she or he will respond with the right response. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, is that really artificial intelligence? Well, it is if it learns over time, and that's the training effect. How many of you have heard of neural networks? Okay. And I just brought up the term training. I don't know if you've noticed, but in my groups, I have this group called the Leper Colony, and it sounds so strange, doesn't it? But it was a group of researchers that in 2006, we brought in different kinds of neural networks. And one of the ones we brought in was a pretty simplistic and yet sophisticated one. How many of you have ever heard of Mark V. Cheney? And I'm going to type that. Now this one's very clever for those of you who are a little more sophisticated in the world of bots, right? And I'm going to give you a link for Mark V. Cheney. How many of you were ever on Usenet? Anyone know Usenet? I'll type that out. Okay, this is the old days then. So I'm speaking towards the old days. Well, many of you know that there are bots on the web that masquerade as humans, right? That masquerade as us and participate in everything from blogging and commenting and being on forums and whatever, right? Well, I'm going to give you a link, and this is to Mark V. Cheney. And in 2006, we brought, Major Senior did it, brought in 3 Mark V. Cheney types of bots, and it was a fake Usenet poster. Imagine a person who's not a person, it's an artificial intelligence bot, who's posting on a Usenet forum, right? And everyone who was on the forum, no one knew it wasn't a real person, that it was a bot, right? And what it was a Markov chain technique that it was using. And what it would do is it would sample and parse what you say. So you would talk to it, and it would listen, and it would gather up, short samples of what you were saying and add it to a database. And then it would take that database of knowledge, and periodically it would draw on it. It would weave that conversation back at you, but it didn't parrot it. It didn't mimic it. It instead took pieces of it and tried to fashion it into some sort of meaningful conversation. Now, Mark V. Cheney was a bit limited in it, but what's interesting is, for neural networks, if the more you talk to it, the better it gets, right? The more precise, the more understanding it has. Now, this isn't the same as your children learning, right? This isn't the same as learning as humans do. This is kind of building on experiential knowledge. So I'll type that. Okay. Any questions so far? Now, I know some of you are going, okay, what does this mean to me? Well, what it means to you is your bot is only as smart as the information you give it, and then the amount of times you talk to it, right? So you have to build up a knowledge base, right? And so you begin your knowledge base by setting these properties. Okay, any questions at this point? Now, in my 2006 example, we had 3 of these systems, and one was called Robert Service, which was a famous poet and the grandfather of one of our researchers, right? We had one that...
Thank you very much, Lear. I've got nothing to say. You've done it all. It's fabulous. Thank you. Applause to you. You're a great pro on presenting and also explaining those complicated notions of artificial intelligence. Well, at least they are complex to me. The next sessions are running. I hope that you do all have a program to choose from. There is a Mayan visit, I think, starting. Welcome area if you want to follow on that. What else is there on the program? Sorry, I don't have the program open, I think. I'll just have a look.
There's an Italian lesson.
Italian lesson.